Hello friends, welcome to our channel. Today we're going to take a look at another horrible case with you. The case of Carmen Thomas. Carmen Thomas was born on October 30th, 1987 in South Africa. When she was just 10 years old, her father passed away. This tragic loss had a profound impact on her family, and they decided to Whitby, United Kingdom, to live with relatives. However, they did not find the peace they were seeking, and after some time, they returned to South Africa. Despite the challenges she faced, Carmen decided to stay with her relatives when she turned 18. She later moved to London, where she completed her studies and earned a master's degree in marketing. Carmen had a strong and charismatic personality that drew people to her. She was a loyal friend and companion to many, but living in a big city like London came with a high price tag. To maintain a decent standard of living, Carmen had to work hard. During the day, she worked as a marketer in a store, and in her free time, she worked part-time in a gentleman's club. Although her choice of part-time job may seem unusual, Carmen was a girl with strong values and never engaged in unnecessary or undignified behavior, which earned her the respect of her clients. In this place, she met Brad Callahan, a charming and flamboyant man. Born in New Zealand in April 1978, Brad's parents separated when he was 9 years old, and he stayed with his mother. They later moved to Australia in 2001. After graduating from university with an engineering degree in the construction industry, Brad was offered a job as chief structural engineer for a large business complex in the UK. To boost his professional image, Brad hired a gentleman's agency and met Carmen, a beautiful, intelligent, and tall woman with dark hair and bright eyes. Although they started with a casual arrangement, Brad and Carmen continued to communicate informally, which eventually turned into a strong friendship, and later, love. Their romantic relationship blossomed quickly, and they soon moved in together. Their life was built on trust, care, and mutual support, making them look absolutely happy. Carmen became pregnant, and Brad thought it would be best for them to move back to New Zealand, where the air is clean and the pace of life is more relaxed. They returned to Auckland in March 2005. After their son Jack was born, he brought immense joy and happiness into their lives from day one. Carmen and Brad prioritized his safety and well-being, providing everything he needed for a happy childhood. To them, Jack was the center of their universe. However, with Jack's arrival, serious disagreements began to surface in their relationship. The first disagreements arose over how to raise their child. As a result, their relationship became rocky and unstable, ultimately leading to their breakup 3 years later. Despite the challenges, they shared joint custody of Jack and made a genuine effort to maintain a positive relationship for his sake. The breakup was difficult for both Carmen and Brad, but they put their differences aside to ensure little Jack's well-being. Carmen and Jack moved in with Colin, Carmen's half-brother, in Oakland, seeking emotional support and a sense of family. As time passed, Carmen regained her emotional balance and started rebuilding her life without Brad. In 2008, she decided to move to a house on a nearby street to Brad's so her young son could be closer to his father. Carmen, who had lost her own father at a young age, wanted to ensure her child would have a father figure in his life as much as possible. Carmen and Brad maintained a relationship for the sake of their son, but many people mistakenly thought they remained a couple. In truth, they only communicated when necessary to support their child. As they went their separate ways, both Carmen and Brad concentrated on finding personal happiness. Brad continued his career as a construction engineer and eventually started a new relationship in May 2009, which led to an engagement. Carmen focused on raising their son while working at the gentleman's club, which upset Brad. He thought the mother of his child should not be involved in questionable activities. This disagreement created tension in their relationship, which worsened over time. Carmen issued ultimatums, but Brad ignored them. Despite this, Brad got married again and was expecting another child. His new financial responsibilities affected the alimony he paid Carmen for Jack's care. The money issue triggered a series of scandals. On March 19, 2010, neighbors called the police due to a domestic violence incident. Carmen was involved in a physical altercation with Brad during an argument and received a warning. Their relationship finally broke down. Even after separation, arguments continued. Each new question about Jack's care sparked aggression and conflict between the two former lovers. They couldn't agree on something as simple as which school Jack should attend, leading to more disputes. On June 29, 2010, Brad visited Carmen's house to finalize a written agreement for child support and discuss a new school for Jack. However, Carmen was unhappy with the document and refused to sign it. In a heated argument, she shouted that Jack was not Brad's son and told him to leave. Brad departed. 2 weeks passed without Brad contacting Carmen. Concerned for her safety, Brad reported Carmen Thomas missing to the police on July 13, 2010. The authorities took his report and launched an investigation. By analyzing video footage and interviewing neighbors, investigators were able to piece together a timeline of events leading up to Carmen's disappearance, uncovering crucial details that would aid in the search for her. On June 29th, a surveillance camera caught Carmen on tape at a nearby supermarket, not far from the house she shared with Jack. The police were alerted to the house when they noticed that there was no garbage can outside, which seemed unusual. Upon inspecting the house, they found traces of blood on the front door, washing machine, and shower. Forensic experts used luminol to detect blood evidence, which reacts with the iron in hemoglobin. The test revealed multiple patterns of bloodstains on the bathroom door and floor, confirming their suspicions. The landlady reported that on June 29th she heard loud screams, followed by prolonged crying and moaning. She went to Carmen's door, but no one answered. When she looked out the window, she saw a street trash can and an overturned drying rack on the ground. Alarmed, she called her husband. Before he arrived, Brad emerged from the house, holding dirty clothes. When he saw the landlady, he hastily explained that Carmen had undergone a medical procedure and had vomited blood. However, the landlady was suspicious, noting that Brad looked like he had just showered. Despite her doubts, she didn't call the police, as she had no reason to disbelieve Brad's story. The police investigation focused on Carmen's cell phone, which showed a steady stream of messages and calls. However, the tone and style of these communications didn't match Carmen's usual way of communicating. This sparked even more questions. Where did Carmen go for medical help, and why? Fortunately, the answers weren't far off. As the investigation continued, Carmen's car was discovered. In the back seat, her personal belongings, including luggage and clothes, were found. A closer look at the seized suitcase revealed bloodstains on some items. A note in the car revealed that Carmen owed money to her employer. A surprising discovery was made in the glove compartment, an envelope with Misty's name on it, containing $270. Police Inspector Mark Benefield suspected foul play after discovering bloodstains in Carmen's car. A search of the countryside southeast of Auckland was conducted, but Carmen's body was not found. The investigation continued, with detectives analyzing Carmen's and Brad's phone records. They made a surprising discovery. Both phones were in the same location throughout the search period, and Carmen's phone hadn't connected to a cell tower in Hamilton. A crucial piece of evidence was a missing trash can, which had vanished from its usual spot near the house on the day Carmen disappeared. A neighbor had seen it through her window. But why was it necessary for the trash can to be inside the house in the first place? The police investigated Brad's phone and financial records, which revealed some suspicious purchases on June 30th, including a meat cleaver, a large plastic container, and garbage bags. By examining Brad's daily routine, they found some unusual events that didn't fit his normal pattern. One day, he arrived at the construction site very early and spent a long time walking alone around the property. While this was unusual, it wasn't enough to raise concern among the workers who saw him. As the evidence mounted, including Carmen's phone and Brad's questionable purchases, he went from being a victim to a suspect. The police believed that Brad had killed Carmen by hitting her on the head multiple times and then hiding her body. On September 21st, Brad was arrested and charged with Carmen's murder and attempting to modify the course of justice. He pleaded not guilty and was scheduled for trial. In a surprising coincidence, Brad's second son was born to his new partner while he was in custody, causing a wave of emotion and resentment in the young father. 9 days after his arrest, Brad broke down and revealed to investigators where he had buried Carmen's body. Brad concocted a plan to make it seem like Carmen had left for Hamilton and never came back. Confident in his scheme, he was convinced he'd pulled it off. However, life had other plans. Under interrogation, Brad recounted the events of that fateful day. It began with a heated argument, which ended with Carmen kicking Brad out of the house and claiming Jack wasn't his son. Brad left, but 5 minutes later, he returned and struck Carmen on the head with a baseball bat, rendering her unconscious. The impact was severe, causing blood to gush from the wound and stain the floor bright red, accompanied by labored breathing. Standing over Carmen's lifeless body, Brad's eyes blazed with a wild, unhinged expression. He realized the gravity of his actions, but his anger and resentment towards Carmen's words clouded his judgment. In a fit of rage, he unleashed several more punches. Although aware of the irreparable consequences, his obsessive fury consumed him. Fleeting memories of happier times flashed before his eyes, but they were now forever lost. Brad knew his life would never be the same after that devastating moment, but he felt no remorse as he had eliminated his primary problem, and Jack was now exclusively his. After regaining consciousness, Brad took a shower and discreetly left Carmen's house. In the subsequent days, he took swift action to dispose of Carmen's body and conceal the evidence of the crime. He contacted his friend and arranged to meet him outside a supermarket, asking him to purchase 3 black garbage bags, kerosene, and cleaning supplies. Brad waited outside the store, trying to avoid raising suspicions. Once his friend had made the purchase, Brad returned to the apartment and began the cleanup process. He meticulously wiped away the blood spatter and then placed the body in a garbage bag, which he later discarded in a trash can. After Carmen's murdered, the defendant cut her body into 8 pieces to dispose of it. He severed her legs at the hip joints, then cut each leg into 2 pieces at the knee. He also severed her arms and head from her torso. On July 3rd, he confided in a friend at a boat ramp in Oahu Bay, Oakland, telling him that he had killed Carmen during an argument and needed help to get rid of the body. However, the friend refused to lend him a boat, and the attempt to dump the remains at sea failed. Over the next few days, the defendant drove to Wyrie Ridge in West Auckland and buried the body parts in a shallow grave. On July 7th, he drove Carmen's car to Hamilton and abandoned it in a hotel parking lot, leaving behind a suitcase of clothes and other personal belongings to make it seem like she had intentionally left. However, in his hurry, he failed to notice that the suitcase also contained bloody clothes. After disposing of the car, Brad attempted to create the illusion that Carmen was still alive by sending text messages from her cell phone to her friends. He pretended to be Carmen, claiming she was unwell and had been in poor health for days. However, Brad's plan ultimately failed. On October 1st, the police searched the burial site indicated by Brad and discovered Carmen's body. Her remains were found in plastic containers in a makeshift grave on Wyrie Ridge, and an autopsy revealed that she had died from multiple head injuries, including a fatal blow that caused a compressed skull fracture. After forensic examinations, Carmen's body was returned to her family for burial. A private funeral was held at Green Lane Christian Center on October 13th to honor Carmen, a young mother known for her cheerful, kind, and successful nature. Her son, little Jack, was only able to hug and kiss her white casket, having waited and hoped to see and hug his mother. The first court hearing for Carmen's case took place on February 8, 2011. Judge Venning found the crime to be unintentional, taking into account Brad's claim that he acted in a fit of rage. While Judge Venning acknowledged this, he was less lenient when it came to Brad's attempted cover-up. On May 26, 2011, Brad Callahan was charged with attempting to obstruct justice. According to the police investigation, on July 29, 2010, Callahan fatally struck Carmen Thomas multiple times in the head. He then sent a text message to a friend asking for 3 garbage bags and a bottle of kerosene. Subsequently, Callahan dismembered Carmen's body into 8 pieces to dispose of it. On November 25, 2011, a retrial was held, and police officers involved in the case filled the Auckland High Court. Unexpectedly, Brad Callahan pleaded guilty to 2 charges: murder and attempting to obstruct justice following Carmen's death. This was a reversal of his previous denial of guilt. The judge described Callahan's actions as one of the most serious cases of attempting to pervert the course of justice, stating it was as serious as it gets. The judge also characterized the murder of Carmen Thomas as brutal, but not severe enough to warrant the harshest sentencing laws. A 33-year-old man, Brad Callahan, was sentenced to life in prison for murdering Carmen Thomas in Auckland High Court. The court was packed with Carmen's friends and family, including her parents, who had traveled from South Africa. Judge Venning condemned Callahan's attempts to cover his tracks, describing them as insufficient to bring him to justice. Callahan will serve his life sentence and 6 years for attempting to pervert the course of justice concurrently. Detective Inspector Mark Benefield stated that Callahan's actions had a devastating impact on 2 families and that he had effectively passed judgment on himself. Callahan's supporters left the court without commenting. Carmen's family expressed their grief and anger over her tragic loss, grateful that Callahan will be imprisoned for a long time to reflect on the harm he caused. Her mother, Teresa Scott, was left completely devastated by the incident. Detective Mark Benefield explained that the 10-week investigation into Carmen's disappearance involved hundreds of hours of police work. Early on, they suspected she was murdered and carefully gathered evidence, following proper legal procedures. Benefield praised the cooperation with the defendant's employer and ongoing efforts to search the construction site for more evidence. He didn't rule out further arrests or charges related to Carmen's death. The Thomas family is devastated, saying they'll never forgive Brad for his actions. However, Carmen's stepfather, Wayne Callahan, and his attorney, Stuart Grieve, acknowledged Brad's acceptance of responsibility and won't challenge the sentence. The case raises concerns about potential biases against Carmen due to her profession, but emphasizes that the victim is not to blame and Brad's actions were inexcusable. The case has garnered significant media attention due to its rarity in New Zealand. The impact on Carmen's young son, Jack, who now lives under an assumed name, is also discussed, with the need to protect him from learning the truth about his mother's fate. The case of Alice Adams and Tibor Vas. Tibor was born and raised in Budapest, Hungary, as the second child to his parents and had a younger sister. He had a strong affinity for socializing and was musically inclined, able to play almost any instrument, with the piano being his favorite. He taught his sister Isabella how to play the piano, and they would often sing and play together while their parents listened in. After the sudden loss of his father in 2007, Tibor, his sister Isabella, and their mother Rosalia struggled to cope. Tibor spent most of his free time with his sister and began working full-time at the age of 15 in 2008. He applied to the University of Budapest, hoping that obtaining a college degree would lead to a decent job and better financial support for his mother. Despite his exceptional talent, he was denied admission to the university. This led Tibor to discuss moving to Great Britain with his mother, who seemingly supported the idea. Tibor subsequently moved to the United Kingdom in July 2010, at the age of 19. He settled in London and began working at the Radisson Blu Edwardian Heathrow Hotel. Tibor thoroughly enjoyed his job, his responsibilities, his co-workers, and the new clients he met daily. Alice was a talented musician who quickly formed a strong bond with Tibor, as they always found something to discuss. Alice Adams and Tibor Vass worked as receptionists at the hotel, alongside Attila, a 31-year-old who had been employed there the longest and had been recognized as the best employee of 2010. Like Tibor, Attila was from Hungary, which had brought them closer together. The hotel provided apartments for its incoming employees, and Attila and Tibor took advantage of this convenient arrangement, living in a house behind the hotel. This saved them money and reduced their commute time. Although Tibor was happy to be in England, he didn't give up on his plans for higher education. He reapplied to the university in Budapest and was finally accepted. Overjoyed, he was set to return to Hungary in August 2011. To mark Tibor's departure, the hotel employees organized a small farewell party on August 9, 2011. The gathering was attended by Tibor, Attila, Alice, and other hotel staff. The next day, the trio was scheduled to work, but all three failed to show up. When they didn't arrive by 7 a.m., their colleagues became concerned and alerted the authorities. The police were notified at 7:53 a.m. Upon arriving at the house, the officers found the door unlocked, but there was no response when they knocked. When one of the officers entered, he was met with a disturbing scene. Alice lay on the living room floor, her face concealed by a pillow. A subsequent autopsy revealed 22 stab wounds on her body. In the bedroom, Tibor's naked body lay on the bed, having succumbed to 2 stab wounds to the heart. Attila, however, was nowhere to be found. The police cordoned off the house, and investigators and forensic experts launched their investigation. As they examined the crime scene, they noticed that the bed where Tibor's body lay was not where he had died. The bed was too clean, suggesting that the perpetrator had inflicted Tibor's fatal wounds elsewhere, then stripped him, cleaned him up, and placed him on the bed. The apartment yielded evidence of a party, including alcohol bottles and illegal substances. Despite a thorough search of the house, surrounding area, and attic, police were unable to find Attila Ban, but they did find his personal belongings, including his papers, still in the apartment. Attila became the prime suspect, and as experts continued to process the crime scene, investigators began interviewing his co-workers. They learned that Attila had taken Tibor under his wing as soon as Tibor started working at the hotel, given their shared nationality. Attila soon invited Tibor to move in with him in an apartment near the hotel, and even adjusted their work schedules so they would be on the same shift. Tibor, a young and attractive man, had plenty of female admirers. However, Attila Ban, who openly identified as gay, had developed romantic feelings for Tibor. According to hotel staff, Tibor consistently rebuffed Attila's advances, leaving Attila unhappy. 3 weeks prior to her murder, Alice started working at the hotel, and Tibor began to show interest in her. This naturally upset Attila, who was jealous despite knowing that Tibor only dated women. The investigators wondered, could Attila's jealousy and unrequited love have driven him to commit the crime? Even before the police discovered the bodies of Tibor Vass and Alice Adams, Attila Ban had posted an ominous message on his Facebook page. The message, "I would like to wake up from that nightmare," was posted at 6:23 a.m., prompting concerned comments from friends that went unanswered. This message further implicated Attila Ban in the murders of his colleagues. The brutality of the crime scene also pointed to Attila's involvement. Alice suffered 22 stab wounds, while Tibor was stabbed twice. Additionally, Alice was found lying on the floor with a pillow over her face, while Tibor's body was on the bed. The investigators spoke with the other party members, who revealed that when everyone else departed, Attila, Tibor, and Alice were the only ones remaining in the apartment. This suggested that a significant event had occurred involving these 3 individuals in the time leading up to dawn. The news of Tibor and Alice's deaths was devastating to both the Adams and Vass families. In a statement, Alice's mother, Sarah, paid tribute to her daughter, saying, "Her loss is a tragedy beyond expression." Alice's mother told the investigators that Alice had sent a text message around midnight saying she would be staying overnight at a friend's house. The police then issued an all-points bulletin for Attila, but he appeared to have vanished without leaving any clues. They tried to track his phone and found that it was connected to cell towers near the hotel, which was strange. It was later discovered that Attila had been much closer to them than anyone had suspected the whole time. The investigation team spent 2 days at the scene before leaving the house. A few hours later, the forensic team returned to the house to conduct further tests. Upon arrival, they noticed that the door they had left open was now locked from the inside. When they entered the room, they found Attila lying on the bed, intoxicated and having attempted to harm himself with scissors and a knife. He had visible wounds on his neck and wrists. When questioned, Attila behaved strangely, using gestures to try to convey something. He was taken to the hospital, where doctors ensured that his life was not in danger. The police were baffled by Attila's whereabouts during the past 2 days, only to discover that he had been hiding in the sofa bed where Tibor Vasa's body was found. Attila had created a slit in the base of the sofa, taken a phone and several bottles of water, and climbed inside while the police were investigating the scene. From his hiding spot, he was able to listen and watch the police through the holes he had made. Attila was eventually arrested at the hospital and became the prime suspect. The trial began on July 9, 2012, and as it progressed, more details about the brutal crime emerged. It was revealed that the party had spiraled out of control after Alice, Tibor, and Attila were left alone in the apartment. During the trial, it was established that there was sexual activity between all three, as evidenced by DNA from both men found on Miss Adams' breasts. Attila claimed to remember the three of them being in bed together, but he had no recollection of what happened afterwards. He claimed that he didn't realize the gravity of his actions until the next morning, when he woke up to find Alice and Tibor's lifeless bodies. Overcome with guilt, he wanted to take his own life, but he was too afraid to do it alone. Instead, he cut off Tibor's clothes and climbed into the bathtub with him, unable to bring himself to harm himself. He later moved Tibor's body to the bed, and, aware that people would be looking for them, hid inside the base of the bed. While in hiding, he even managed to update his Facebook page. The defendant broke down in tears in the courtroom as prosecutor Richard Whittam presented the facts of the case to the jury. Tibor Vas had previously been in relationships with women who worked at the hotel, and there is no evidence to suggest he had a romantic relationship with Attila. However, Attila seemed to have strong feelings for Tibor and had exhibited possessive behavior towards him. The court was told that Attila was jealous of Vas and, just days before the crime, had thrown a tantrum during a team-building exercise when he wasn't included in a photo with his victim. The situation escalated to a critical point when Attila discovered that Tibor Vas had been accepted into a university program in Hungary and was planning to leave Britain by the end of the month. This news might have been the trigger that pushed Attila over the edge, as he couldn't bear the sight of Tibor and Alice kissing, and in a fit of jealousy, he killed them both. Prosecutor Richard Whittam revealed in his court statement that Attila was found naked on the single bed, with wounds on his wrists, forearm, and neck. It became clear that he had been hiding in the base of the double bed's divan, and he must have remained there undetected throughout the pathologist's examination, the removal of the bodies, and the crime scene investigation by forensic experts. Despite being in a state of turmoil, Attila had the presence of mind to conceal himself effectively and avoid detection during the entire time the authorities were present at the scene. After the case, Detective Inspector John Finch addressed the media outside the courtroom, defending the police's decision not to search under the bed. "I have reviewed this case multiple times with senior management," he said. "It's unbelievable that someone would hide under a bed. It's such an unusual and bizarre behavior." Finch explained that crime scene examiners would compromise crucial forensic evidence if they routinely lifted up beds to look for people who were not likely to be there. On August 11th, Rosalia received the devastating news that her 20-year-old son, Tibor, and his friend Alice had been murdered. It was unthinkable and heart-wrenching to accept that such a tragedy could occur. Rosalia had previously taken comfort in knowing that Tibor had found a reliable and trustworthy friend in London who was mature, friendly, and intelligent. This friend had personally promised Rosalia that he would look out for her son and ensure his safety. Rosalia had trusted him implicitly and regarded him as a member of her own family. This made the news of Tibor's murder all the more crushing. Throughout the police investigation and trial, Rosalia was forced to relive the horrors of that fateful night, which only intensified her grief. The agony and loss that the family has had to endure for the rest of their lives is indescribable. Attila Bond, whose name is actually Attila Bond, pleaded guilty to a crime but claimed he had no memory of the horrific events that occurred on July 18, 2012. After deliberating for only 5 hours, the jury delivered a verdict on August 17th, finding the 32-year-old guilty. As a result, he was given 2 life sentences and will be required to serve at least 26 years in prison before becoming eligible to request parole. The case of Kelly Clayton. Thomas "Tom" Clayton, a notable figure in Elmira, New York, played professional hockey for the Elmira Jackals in the United Hockey League, 2 tiers below the National Hockey League. As a result of his prominent role on the Jackals, Tom enjoyed local celebrity status in Elmira. Known for his agitating style of play, Tom would often provoke opposing players through verbal sparring or physical confrontations on the ice. This assertive and confident demeanor extended beyond the rink, as Tom fearlessly stood up for himself and defended his interests in his daily life. His on-ice reputation as a formidable player preceded him, warning others that he was not one to be easily intimidated. In addition to being aggressive, Tom was also known for his good looks, which made him a magnet for women. Wherever he went, he would use his charm to get what he wanted, never having to pay for a drink or dinner. As a popular hockey player, he was living a life of luxury, enjoying all the perks that came with his fame. Among the many women who came in and out of Tom's life, one person stood out: Kelly Stange. She was different from the others he had met. Born in West Elmira, Kelly had a bold and sassy personality. Her passion for country music took her to Nashville, where she attended college, hoping to become a teacher. After graduating, Kelly's plans took an unexpected turn, and she moved to Las Vegas, Nevada, where she started a new chapter in her life as a cocktail server and model. During the Christmas holiday, Kelly went back home to celebrate with her family and attended a hockey game in Elmira, where she met Tom Clayton. His good looks and skill on the ice caught her attention. After the game, Kelly and Tom ran into each other at a bar, and they instantly connected. Their chemistry was palpable. Although Kelly's friends and family had some reservations about Tom because of his occasional inappropriate behavior, Kelly remained steadfast in her commitment to their relationship. She would defend Tom, saying he was just joking when he made offensive comments, and her love for him blinded her to his flaws. Eventually, Kelly and Tom got married, but unfortunately, Tom suffered a career-ending injury while playing hockey just a year later. After his hockey career, Tom took a regular job at ServPro, a disaster cleanup company, which provided him with a stable income to support his family. Meanwhile, Kelly dedicated herself to caring for their 2 children, Charlie and Colin, and creating a loving home for them. To outsiders, the Claytons seemed like the perfect family. Tom and Kelly appeared to have everything: a successful marriage and 2 kids. They lived in a mountain home that Kelly loved. However, their lives took a drastic turn in September 2015. A devastating event would shatter their seemingly perfect existence. On September 29, 2015, Tom went to his friends Greg and Linda Miller's house to play poker after work, leaving Kelly alone with the children. When he returned home from the game, he made a disturbing discovery. Kelly lay dead on the kitchen floor, covered in blood. Tom was overcome with panic and immediately called 911. The dispatcher told Tom to give his wife, Kelly, CPR, but Tom, overcome with grief, told the dispatcher that it was too late to help her. At around midnight, a police officer arrived at Tom and Kelly's house. When the officer entered the kitchen, he was shocked by what he saw. Kelly was lying on the floor, dead, with a badly injured face, clearly the victim of a violent attack. There was blood everywhere, making for a horrifying scene. The officer's first priority was to take Tom out of the house and away from the scene. Once they were outside, the officer asked Tom what had happened. Tom said he didn't know the details, explaining that he had come home to find Kelly like that, and his daughter Charlie had told him that there was a burglar in the house. The officer cautiously examined Tom's hands to check for signs of a struggle or any evidence that might suggest Tom was involved in the attack. However, he found nothing unusual. Given the severity of the situation, the officer requested backup. A paramedic soon arrived and confirmed that Kelly Clayton had died. The brutal nature of her death led the police department to launch a thorough investigation. As officers cordoned off Tom and Kelly's home as a crime scene, Tom called Kelly's sister, Kim, to break the devastating news of Kelly's passing. Kim, in shock, rushed to the scene with their mother, Liz. When they arrived, they were met with crime scene tape and flashing patrol car lights, which only heightened their fear and anxiety. Desperate to locate Kelly, Kim and Liz rushed towards the ambulance, hoping to find paramedics trying to save her. However, the officers on the scene refused to let them get close, explaining that Kelly's body was unviewable due to her catastrophic injuries. Kelly's death and the unrecognizable state of her body devastated Kim and Liz, leaving them heartbroken. They burst into tears, their anguished screams filling the air. As the coroner's van arrived, Kim, Liz, and the officers joined hands to pray for Kelly's soul as her body was placed in a body bag and loaded into the van. As the night wore on, the crime scene investigators thoroughly searched Kelly and Tom's house and property, but found no new leads pointing to a suspect. Despite their diligent efforts, they found nothing. The investigators were unable to recover a murder weapon at the scene, but based on Kelly's injuries, they concluded that the weapon was likely small and light. The attack on Kelly occurred while she was peacefully sleeping in the master bedroom on the second floor. The attacker struck her with a blunt object. After being hit, Kelly tried to escape and sought refuge in Charlie's bedroom. A large amount of blood was found in that room, suggesting that Kelly had barricaded herself inside. However, the attack continued, as evidenced by a hole in the landing wall, which appeared to have been caused by Kelly's body being pushed down the stairs. After falling down the stairs, Kelly got up and made her way to the kitchen, where the suspect caught up to her and attacked her again in a violent encounter. The suspect brutally bludgeoned Kelly in the head and face, inflicting severe injuries that ultimately led to her death. Tom Clayton informed the first officer at the scene that his daughter Charlie had reported a robber in the house. However, the investigators who searched the property found no signs of forced entry and no evidence of theft. Furthermore, Kelly's expensive jewelry was still present and untouched, and the safe was intact. Given the brutal nature of Kelly's death, the detective initially suspected a domestic violence dispute. Despite this, Tom Clayton claimed to have an alibi, stating that he was playing poker at his friends Greg and Linda Miller's house for the entire night, which would have made it impossible for him to have committed the murder if his claim was true. When the police questioned Tom and Kelly's neighbor at the crime scene, he said he didn't think the couple had any problems and seemed happy. Later, detectives interviewed Tom about his wife's murder, and he repeated his alibi, saying he was playing poker at Greg and Linda Miller's house that night. The detectives then questioned the other players Tom mentioned, and they all confirmed that Tom was present. Although Tom had a solid alibi, the detectives found it strange that he was very calm considering the situation. They asked him repeatedly if he was involved in Kelly's murder, and Tom denied it every time. The detectives also needed to question Tom and Kelly's 7-year-old daughter, Charlie, who had witnessed the entire assault on her mother. Recognizing the importance of protecting Charlie's well-being, the detectives took a gentle approach. They started by doing fun activities with her, like playing board games, to make her feel comfortable before asking about her mother's murder. When they finally brought up the topic, they asked Charlie to describe what she had seen that night. Charlie said a robber wearing a mask, black shirt, and jeans had broken into their house. The intruder was carrying a white stick that looked like a metal pipe and used it to attack Kelly. Charlie remembered hearing Kelly shout, "Run, Charlie, run," as the attacker pushed her down the stairs. After Kelly was pushed downstairs, Charlie followed and saw the attacker beat her to death on the kitchen floor. Charlie believed her mother was dead, so she lay next to her and hugged her leg during the interview. Despite the traumatic event, 7-year-old Charlie seemed detached from the situation. Charlie told the detectives that the robber who hurt her mommy had the same eyes as her daddy. However, she was convinced her dad couldn't have done it, because then who would take care of them? Based on the evidence found at the crime scene and Charlie's statements, the detectives believed that the intruder's intention was not theft, but to kill Kelly. After questioning Tom Clayton, the detectives charged him with second-degree murder in connection with his wife Kelly's death, based on his daughter's description of the intruder resembling him. Tom denied the second-degree murder charge and was released on bail, returning to the home where Kelly was killed. He cleaned up the house and continued to live there. Within a month of Kelly's murder, Tom started having affairs with multiple women, gambling in Atlantic City, and showed no signs of grief. The detectives grew suspicious of Tom's behavior, which they deemed unbecoming of a loving husband mourning the loss of his wife. Despite this, Tom maintained that he loved Kelly and would never harm her, even planning a second honeymoon with her. Tom claimed his GPS records on his work truck would prove he didn't get home until 12:35 a.m., but even after verifying this, detectives still suspected him of involvement in Kelly's murder. During their investigation, detectives questioned Greg and Linda Miller, with whom Tom played poker that night. They said Tom was quieter than usual and spent most of the night texting, but they didn't think he could hurt Kelly. The detectives also interviewed Kim, Kelly's sister, asking if she knew anyone who might want to harm Kelly. Kim mentioned Michael Beard, a close friend and co-worker of Tom's, who often helped him with tasks. Michael knew Tom's family, including Kelly and their children, and had even watched Charlie and Colin when Kelly needed to run errands. Michael had high praise for Kelly and the kids, calling them beautiful people. As well as working for Tom, Michael was also his landlord, since Tom owned the building where Michael lived with his family. Michael paid Tom a monthly rent of $11,000. But things went downhill when Michael got accused of drinking on the job. As a result, Tom fired him. This not only cost Michael his job, but also made his financial situation worse, since he was already behind on the rent he owed Tom. Tom's decision to fire Michael not only affected his job, but also put his home at risk. Tom started eviction proceedings, making Michael's financial struggles even harder. Michael found himself in a tough spot, facing both unemployment and the threat of losing his home. The detectives interviewed Michael Beard at the police station, seeking information about Kelly's murder. Michael expressed sadness over Kelly's death, but claimed he was at home all night. Linda Miller, who hosted the poker game where Tom was present on the night of Kelly's murder, remembered a peculiar incident. Tom had asked to use her cell phone, even though his own phone seemed to be functioning properly. According to Linda, Tom made the call at 10:53 p.m. Upon further inspection, Linda found that the call's details had vanished from her phone's records. It seemed that Tom had deliberately erased the number he called. The detectives obtained Greg and Linda Miller's cell phone records, which revealed the phone number Tom had dialed on the night of the murder. Tracing this number led them to Michael Beard. When the detectives discovered Tom Clayton had contacted Michael Beard on the night of his wife's murder, they brought Michael in for further questioning. Michael, however, continued to deny any involvement in Kelly's murder. The detectives then turned their attention to Michael's partner, Holly. She told them Michael had been out all night on the evening of the murder, leaving their house around 11 p.m. Moreover, Holly revealed that Tom Clayton had previously approached Michael with a proposition: burn down his and Kelly's house for $10,000 with the intention of collecting the insurance payout. Michael decided to confess to murdering Kelly after being confronted with the information. He admitted to killing Tom's wife Kelly, but claimed he did not receive the $10,000 payment they had agreed upon. In his signed confession, Michael outlined the original plan, which involved going to Tom's house and killing Kelly while the children were at their grandmother's. Tom had instructed Michael to use the gas cans in the garage to set the house on fire, allowing Tom to collect insurance payouts for the damage. However, Michael said he did not follow through with the arson and instead fled the scene. After killing Kelly, Michael took the police to the location of the murder weapon, a sledgehammer-type object that was found to have Kelly's DNA on it. He also led them to the area where he had discarded his bloody clothing. Mark Blanford, a friend of Michael Beard, came forward to the detectives and gave a statement about his encounter with Michael on the night of the murder. Michael had asked Mark to help him with a job, offering to pay him $500. Mark claimed he had no idea what the job was, assuming it was probably a drug deal. Mark said that Michael later told him he had to kill someone, and that after Michael got back in the car, he mentioned that the kids weren't supposed to be at home. Michael Beard was arrested and charged with first-degree murder in connection with Kelly Clayton's death. Detectives think that 7-year-old Charlie didn't see her father during the attack, but instead mistook the attacker for her father because of the way he was dressed. Kelly's husband, Tom, had a large life insurance policy on Kelly, which had recently been increased before her murder. Detectives believe the motive behind the murder was this policy, as Kelly would have received a significant portion of Tom's assets if they had divorced. Furthermore, detectives think Tom not only intended to kill his wife, but also wanted his children dead. This claim is supported by Michael Beard, who alleges that Tom confided in him about the planned murders. According to Michael, Tom told him that the children would be at their grandmother's house and instructed him to set the house on fire after killing Kelly. However, when Michael was instructed to set the fire, Tom knew the children would be at home, not at their grandmother's house. This information suggests Tom deliberately planned for his children's deaths, wanting to eliminate any reminders of his life with Kelly and start over as a single, child-free bachelor. Based on the evidence, it appears Tom's actions were driven by a desire to erase his past and start anew. Before his trial, Michael Beard retracted his confession, stating that he did not kill Kelly. Instead, he claimed to have entered the Clayton home and found her lying on the ground, covered in blood. As a black man in a house with a murdered white woman, Michael said he was fearful of being wrongly accused and did not want to be blamed for the crime, so he fled the scene without calling 911. Michael Beard alleged that his signed confessions were coerced, but in 2016, he was convicted and sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. In a 2020 interview, Michael altered his story again, claiming that he arrived at the Clayton home on the night Kelly was killed and saw a man running from the scene who bumped into him and nearly knocked him down. However, this new statement raised several questions, including why he failed to mention this crucial detail at the start of the investigation. Mark Blanford pleaded guilty to a lesser charge of second-degree manslaughter for his role as a lookout during Michael Beard's murder of Kelly Clayton. In exchange for his guilty plea, Mark agreed to testify against Tom Clayton. Notably, Mark had a lengthy criminal record spanning over 30 years, but had never faced such severe charges before. At his sentencing, Mark expressed regret to Kelly's family and friends, apologizing for his involvement in her murder. During Michael Beard's trial for Kelly's murder, the prosecution presented testimony from several women who claimed to have had relationships with Tom Clayton while he was still married to Kelly. One of these women testified that Tom frequently disparaged his wife, describing her as lazy. However, when Tom's defense team responded, they argued that having extramarital affairs did not necessarily make him a murderer. Ultimately, the jury convicted Tom of second-degree murder, rejecting the defense's claims. Today, Tom's children are doing well in the care of their Aunt Kim, who is Kelly's sister. They have a strong support system, which enables them to move forward with their lives despite their mother's absence. As a tribute to Kelly's memory, a park was established in the playground where she would often take her children to play. Her son has even given a special name to one of the benches there, calling it Mommy's Bench. The case of Amanda Blackburn. Amanda Grace Buers was born on July 31, 1987, in Muskegon, Michigan. Her family later moved to Indianapolis, Indiana, and then to Elkhart in 1995. Amanda graduated from Elkhart Christian Academy in 2006 and went on to earn an associate's degree from Pensacola Christian College in Pensacola, Florida in 2008. Amanda was raised in a deeply devout Christian family, where her father served as the lead pastor of First Baptist Church in Elkhart, Indiana. From a young age, she was deeply committed to her faith and had memorized many church sermons. Unlike her peers, who were eager to explore the world and experience adult life, Amanda's desire was to serve Jesus. Amanda was a kind and gentle soul, with a slender build, blonde hair, and a sincere smile. Her thoughts and heart were pure, and she consistently showed love and compassion towards others. As a teenager, Amanda made a vow of chastity, promising not to kiss a man until she was married, and she remained true to this commitment. Amanda's heart raced when she met the love of her life, Davy Blackburn. A native of Tuscaloosa, Alabama, Davy was a devoted Christian who studied religion at Southern Wesleyan University. The two were introduced on a blind date at a Christian concert featuring the band Hawk Nelson, arranged by Amanda's sister and Davy's best friend. Despite attending different colleges, they spent every vacation together, cultivating a deep and innocent connection. Their relationship was free from physical attraction, focusing instead on shared values and faith. They took leisurely walks, discussed their thoughts and favorite Bible passages, and laughed together, finding joy in simple things. On one occasion, before returning to school, they engaged in a playful milkshake drinking contest, which Amanda lost. In a light-hearted moment, Davy teased her, calling her a milk girl. As he looked at her, he knew he had found the woman he wanted to marry. They maintained a long-distance relationship for a long time, relying heavily on messaging apps, phone calls, and extended conversations during their vacations together. They were deeply committed to building a strong and healthy partnership, and to that end, they sought the guidance of a psychologist to learn effective communication strategies. Amanda and Davy Blackburn got married on August 1, 2008. After the ceremony, Davy told friends that he felt a special connection with Amanda, which he believed was part of God's plan. For 4 years, the Blackburns lived in South Carolina, where Davy worked as an associate pastor at New Spring Church under Pastor Perry Noble. However, Davy felt restless and wanted to do more. He suggested to Amanda that they move to Indianapolis to start a new church focused on youth ministry. Amanda was hesitant to leave her family and friends behind, and she struggled with the decision. Eventually, she agreed to move after Davy convinced her that God had big plans for them. In 2012, the Blackburns relocated from South Carolina to Indianapolis to establish an independent church on the north side, targeting young people. They created weekly videos on their website, offering advice on relationships, conflict resolution, and intimate relationships according to the Bible. In 2014, the Blackburn family welcomed their first child, Weston. They lived a happy and comfortable life in a quiet neighborhood, with Davy serving as a popular pastor at a church frequented by many young people. The family was united and content. Tragedy struck on November 10, 2015, when Amanda, who was pregnant at the time, was rushed to the hospital after an ambulance was called to their home. Despite efforts to save her, she died the next day, along with their unborn baby girl, Evie Grace. The news of Amanda's passing sparked an outpouring of sympathy and prayers on social media, with friends, family, and strangers sharing their condolences. On November 11th, the day Amanda was officially declared deceased, Davy released a statement honoring her legacy, saying that she dedicated her life to loving and serving those around her. Amanda Blackburn dedicated her life to spreading the message of Jesus Christ and helping others find salvation. Through her death and legacy, even more people will come to know Christ. I'm certain she wants me to continue the work we started in Indianapolis. Dave Blackburn described the murder of his pregnant wife Amanda as a devastating blow to their Orthodox community and a shock to the entire state. The public demanded justice, calling for the perpetrator to be caught and punished. In his first interview, Dave recounted finding Amanda injured and unconscious on the living room floor, partially naked and surrounded by blood. Dave explained to investigators that he had left the house around 6 a.m. to work out at the fitness center, leaving the door unlocked, as he often did. If he had locked the door, it's possible the criminals might not have entered the house so easily, giving Amanda time to call for help. Amanda suffered 3 gunshot wounds, including one to the head during the attack. Despite a swift investigation, no arrests were made in the days immediately following the crime. The police quickly cleared Amanda's husband, Davy Blackburn, of any involvement in the brutal incident. According to trial transcripts, Davy Blackburn's testimony was supported by that of Scott Floyd, the first emergency medical paramedic from the Indianapolis Fire Department to arrive at the scene. Floyd stated that when they arrived at the house in response to Davy's 911 call, Davy was standing at the end of the driveway with blood on his hands. Scott stated that Davy described his wife Amanda as lying on the floor, unresponsive. Davy claimed to have discovered her after returning home from the gym around 7:30 a.m. and finishing a phone call with his friend Kenneth Wagner. He entered his home at 8:10 a.m. and called emergency services at 8:22 a.m., thinking Amanda was sick or unconscious. However, it's unclear why it took him 12 minutes to make the call and why he didn't notice the brain matter nearby. An emergency room doctor testified that the blood on her head was coagulated, suggesting the gunshot wound occurred around 2 hours earlier. Davy claimed to have only called his father after calling 911. Authorities verified his alibi using surveillance footage from the gym, and he was not considered a suspect. The autopsy revealed Amanda suffered multiple gunshot wounds and signs of a struggle. The investigation included reviewing CCTV footage and interviewing neighbors, one of whom reported hearing gunshots 35 minutes after Davy left the house. The initial theory was robbery, given the missing bank cards and MacBook bag. Police discovered a series of burglaries in the area, including one at a nearby home where a woman reported her phone, laptop, and keys stolen. Another home on Sunnyfield Court was burgled, with several items missing, including a Tiffany pearl necklace and a pink women's sweater. 5 minutes later, Davy reported a burglary at his own home. Police looked for connections between the crimes and released images of possible suspects. Davy was confident in the police's efforts to catch his wife's killer, and investigators were hopeful that promising leads would soon lead to the perpetrator. The key clues that helped track down the suspects were a stolen pink sweater, cell phone records, and an ATM receipt. These were found in a stolen Chrysler Sebring, recovered near the Blackburns' home. The debit card on the receipt matched one of Amanda's stolen cards. The investigation into the crime led to a crucial discovery when a search warrant was obtained to review the ATM camera footage. The video showed the driver covering his face with a stolen pink sweater. By combining DNA testing, surveillance footage, and eyewitness accounts, the police were able to identify the suspects. DNA analysis of the sweater revealed that J.N. Watson was one of the individuals involved. This identification was a significant milestone in the case. Further investigation involved obtaining cell phone records. Watson's phone number was already in the database due to a previous burglary conviction for which he was on parole. The records of Diana Gordon's cell phone were also obtained. The data showed that both Watson's and Gordon's phones were in the vicinity of the crime scene when the incident occurred. Moreover, the phone records indicated that Gordon and Watson were near the Chase Bank, where Amanda's debit card was used on the day of the murder. The final piece of evidence fell into place with the identification of Larry Taylor. By examining surveillance footage in the area, the police were able to identify Taylor's phone number and subsequently trace his address. Following the incident, a new development emerged when a gun was reportedly found near the Blackburn home. A man handed the gun over to the Broad Ripple Fire Department, claiming to have discovered it outside the home. Forensic experts analyzed the gun, and after 2 weeks of investigation, police arrested 18-year-old Larry Taylor and 21-year-old J.N. Watson for Amanda Blackburn's murder. A third suspect, 24-year-old Diana Gordon, was taken into custody for a parole violation, but he was not charged with a felony since he did not enter the Blackburn home. Once the crime lab results were in, it was confirmed that the gun found near the victim's home was the murder weapon. All 3 suspects were apprehended. When questioned, Larry Taylor admitted to shooting the woman twice because she allegedly jumped on him and he feared she would scratch him. He then shot her in the back of the head as she lay on the ground and proceeded to watch her bleed to death. A criminal trio consisting of Taylor, Watson, and Gordon targeted the Blackburn house on November 10th with the intention of stealing money. The husband had left the front door unlocked when he went to the gym, making it an easy target. Upon entering, they confronted Amanda and Taylor, hit her with a gun to subdue her. Watson and Gordon, feeling uneasy, decided to leave and use the stolen bank cards to withdraw cash from an ATM. They attempted to get $500 from one ATM, but were unsuccessful, and then managed to withdraw $1,400 from another. Their actions were caught on CCTV. The duo returned to the Blackburn house to pick up Taylor, but in their absence, Amanda regained consciousness and fought back against her attacker. Taylor tackled her to the ground and later admitted to shooting her. After the crime, Taylor placed the stolen debit cards in an accomplice's car. The Blackburn home was the 3rd target of the day for the trio. Earlier, they had broken into a house where the resident was asleep, stealing a laptop, wallet, and car. They were caught on camera, but ignored it and moved on. Their next target was another home, which they broke into through a patio window, stealing 4 TVs, a laptop, jewelry, and some unusual items, including a bag of oranges and a pink sweater that would eventually help the police identify them. Court documents revealed the evidence gathered by police against the suspects. The most crucial piece of evidence was Jaylen Watson's DNA, found on a pink sweater used to cover his face during a surveillance video. The sweater was stolen during the second burglary, and Watson used it to conceal his identity while trying to withdraw cash with Amanda Blackburn's stolen bank card. In exchange for a reduced sentence, Watson and Diana Gordon cooperated with the investigation. Larry Taylor, however, waived his right to remain silent and admitted to being near the burglary scene. Although he claimed to be confused, he could not provide a clear alibi. The county prosecutor formally filed charges against the suspects. Larry Taylor faces 13 charges, including felony murder for knowingly killing Amanda Blackburn. Jaylen Watson is charged with a felony, and both he and Taylor face multiple counts of burglary, robbery, and theft. Diana Gordon, already in custody for a parole violation, also faces burglary charges. A 4th individual was aware of the robberies, burglaries, and other crimes but did not participate. After questioning, this person was released. The Indianapolis Metropolitan Police Department's Violent Crimes Unit collaborated with the gang unit and federal marshals to apprehend Taylor. Police Chief Rick Height commended the cooperative efforts that led to Taylor's arrest, praising the detectives who worked tirelessly to solve the city's murders without rest. Thanks to Assistant U.S. Attorney Josh Minkler and Prosecutor Terry Curry, justice was served, partly due to the victim's pregnancy. Prosecutors considered filing additional charges related to the fetus, although they found no evidence to support rape charges. Larry Taylor's first trial, held in December 2021, was cut short when it was discovered that a juror had discussed the case with fellow jurors. This led to a mistrial. The second trial, held in October 2022, featured a more rigorous jury selection process. Over 100 potential jurors were called and had to fill out a 16-page questionnaire to assess their ability to reach a fair verdict. Larry Joe Taylor was sentenced to 86 years in the Indiana State Correctional Institution for Amanda Blackburn's murder and additional burglary charges. Diana Gordon and Jalen Watson agreed to plea deals and testified against Larry Taylor in court, receiving sentences ranging from 20 to 35 years in prison. Both Watson and Taylor are currently incarcerated in the Marion County Jail. In Indiana, a murder conviction can lead to 45 to 60 years in prison or even life imprisonment or the death penalty. Prosecutors sought to enhance Larry Taylor's sentence by 20 years due to the victim's pregnancy during the alleged crime. Davy Blackburn, Amanda's husband and a pastor, expressed relief that those responsible for her murder were caught and would not harm anyone else. Amanda's death had a significant impact, with thousands attending her funeral, including Governor Mike Pence. A donation page was set up to cover funeral and medical expenses. Davy Blackburn chose to forgive Amanda's killers, stating, "I choose the path of forgiveness, grace, and hope." Amanda's case garnered national and international media attention. After Amanda's death, Davy Blackburn transitioned from an unhappy husband to a popular blogger, capitalizing on his tragedy. He created podcasts and videos, sharing his experiences and pain. He became famous and wealthy, receiving an insurance payout and buying a new home. The case of Lynn Keel. Lynn and Elizabeth Keel had been married for over 20 years. Lynn worked as a truck driver, while Elizabeth was employed by Microbac Laboratories. They lived in a secluded house in Nash County, North Carolina. On January 1st, 2006, Elizabeth slipped on the icy steps outside their house and fell, hitting her head on the concrete corner. The injury was fatal, and her life was tragically cut short. After a year, Lynn began to rebuild his life after a devastating event. He made a career change, leaving his job as a truck driver to pursue a new path in real estate. In 2007, his real estate work brought him to Latin America, where he met Diana, a 26-year-old woman from Bogota, Colombia. Diana was not only attractive, but also had a kind heart and was a dedicated single mother to her young daughter. Their relationship blossomed quickly, and Diana was drawn to the idea of a better life in America. She moved to the United States to be with Lynn, and they settled into his home in Nash County. This was the same house where Lynn's wife, Elizabeth Keel, had tragically died in an accident about a year earlier. Before long, Lynn and Diana got married, and soon they welcomed a son named Max into their family. Diana graduated from Nash Community College in 2017 and began working as an emergency room nurse at Wilson Medical Center the same year. In the early years of her relationship, everything seemed normal, but over time, things took a turn for the worse. According to Diana, her partner Lynn became controlling and verbally abusive, often speaking harshly to her. By 2019, Diana's daughter Laura had turned 18 and was attending the University of North Carolina at Wilmington after graduating from Southern Nash High School. Meanwhile, Diana's 10-year-old son Max was living with his parents. Diana's colleagues and patients at Wilson Medical Center held her in high regard, respecting and admiring her both personally and professionally. On March 7, 2019, Diana's mother, Esperanza Prada, who lived in Colombia, received an unexpected message from Diana that read, "Mom, I love you very much." Esperanza was disturbed by this message because she was aware that Diana was miserable in her marriage and longed to get a divorce, but Diana's fear of her husband prevented her from taking the intervention. 3 days later, Laura tweeted a plea for help, saying her mom Diana was missing and asking others to spread the word if they saw or heard anything. On the same day, Laura contacted the medical center where her mother, Diana, worked, but none of Diana's co-workers had seen or heard from her in the past 48 hours. An employee at the medical center notified the police, requesting a welfare check on Diana. The co-worker informed the dispatcher that Diana had been unreachable for 2 days. When the police officer arrived at the Keel family home, Lynn Keel was present. It was unusual that his wife's disappearance had been reported to the police by her co-workers, rather than by him. Lynn told the officer that he had last seen Diana 2 days prior, on March 8th, when she left the house. The presence of her car still parked outside the house raised further suspicions. Lynn was summoned for further questioning. When interrogated, 57-year-old Keel stated that his wife had gone out to run errands but never came back. He claimed she sometimes left for several days at a time, but his explanation was not believable. He was released without being charged. Meanwhile, Diana was reported missing, prompting the police to launch a search for her. The investigation revealed that Diana hadn't used her cell phone or bank cards in several days, which was a disturbing sign. The house where this incident took place is located in a secluded area, far from any neighbors who could provide valuable information to the police. Despite this, detectives discovered that on the morning of March 8th, Diana and Lynn had a loud and intense argument on their front porch. On the day Diana went missing, a courier delivered a package addressed to her, making him the last person to see her, aside from her husband, Lynn Keel. After speaking with Diana's co-workers, the police were convinced that she wouldn't abandon her 10-year-old son and flee. The only reason Diana didn't divorce Lynn was her fear of losing custody of her child. Everyone the detective interviewed suspected only one person of being involved in Diana's disappearance: her husband, Lynn Keel. Early in the investigation, a troubling discovery was made. 2 years prior to Diana's disappearance, Lynn had taken out a life insurance policy on her worth over $1 million, with him as the sole beneficiary. A domestic dispute had taken place at the Keel house in 2008, although no further action was taken. Just 2 days into the investigation, the police received a disturbing call. A North Carolina Department of Transportation employee reported finding something on Pokes Hole Road. A man called the police to report something suspicious in the woods, saying he wasn't sure what it was, possibly a body, but he didn't know how far in it was. The dispatcher asked if it was at the end of the road, and the caller confirmed he would wait there. Tragically, what the caller had stumbled upon was Diana's body, which appeared to have been there since the day she went missing. It turned out the caller was a worker who had been checking an illegal dumping site when he made the discovery. The body was found on Pokes Hole Road, a dead-end street surrounded by farmland. Considering the location was 30 miles from Diana's home, it was fortunate that the police found her body when they did. If not for the worker's discovery, it could have taken the police much longer to find her. At the police station, the investigators questioned Lynn about Diana's disappearance. He stuck to his story, claiming that she would often leave for several days, but always come back. However, this contradicted what her co-workers, relatives, and friends had said. It was common knowledge that Lynn Keel exerted total control over his wife's life, even preventing her from socializing with friends. Despite the inconsistencies in his alibi, the police released him pending the outcome of the autopsy. 2 days after the body was found, authorities confirmed that it was indeed Diana Keel. Her death was devastating for her children, family, and friends. The medical examiner's report revealed the shocking details of Diana's death. The autopsy showed that she suffered from severe skull fractures and multiple sharp wounds on the left side of her face and neck. Notably, some of these injuries occurred after her death, suggesting that the perpetrator may have had a personal vendetta against her. When police arrived to arrest Lynn Keel and search his home, they found that he had already fled. A nationwide wanted list was issued, warning that he might be driving a gold-colored pickup truck and that he could be dangerous. After being questioned at the police station, Lynn Keel drove his 10-year-old son to his parents' home, took his father's car, and escaped. A search warrant was issued for the home Lynn shared with his wife Diana, and authorities seized a collection of firearms, including rifles, pistols, and revolvers, as well as swords, a machete, and multiple knives. During the search, authorities also found 2 pages from a diary belonging to Diana's 18-year-old daughter in a Dodge Ram owned by Lynn Keel. When asked about the contents of the diary pages, the sheriff declined to comment, stating that he did not feel comfortable sharing the information. The search for Lynn Keel, Diana's husband, continued as his whereabouts remained unknown after leaving the state. Although the sheriff's office received tips about his truck's location in Texas and Florida, no further information about his capture was confirmed. Stone requested the public's help to look out for Keel's pickup truck with the listed license plate number at local motels and hotels. On March 17, 2019, 5 days after Diana's body was found, Arizona State Police arrested Lynn Keel, 34 miles from the U.S.-Mexico border. At the time of his arrest, he had a large amount of cash and canned goods, allegedly planning to escape into Mexico. Following his arrest, Lynn Keel was flown back to Nash County, where he was charged with his wife's murder and kidnapping. Investigators believed Diana was still alive when she was put into her own SUV, driven into the woods, and left to die. Forensic evidence found in the bedroom of their home confirmed that the attack on Diana took place there. After abducting Diana, Keel went to a remote area and later visited a local Walmart to purchase cleaning supplies, which he used to try to conceal evidence of the crime. The heinous nature of the crime, combined with Keel's attempted escape from justice, sparked widespread media coverage at the local, state, and national levels. As a result, the public defender requested a change of venue to select a jury pool outside of Nash County, away from the intense media scrutiny. Lynn Keel, 59, pleaded no contest to the charges in October 2021, avoiding a long trial. By doing so, Keel accepted responsibility for the crimes. He pleaded guilty to second-degree murder and first-degree kidnapping. Keel's defense team requested that the judge consider his deteriorating health, specifically his kidney failure, and the fact that he has been in prison for 2 years during the sentencing. However, Diana's mother addressed the court, remembering the tragic reason her daughter was killed. She took the opportunity to convey a crucial message to women who may be in similar situations, urging them to leave abusive partners and not stay in harmful relationships. Diana Alejandra Keel's family expressed their gratitude to law enforcement for capturing and bringing to justice Lynn Keel, the suspect in Diana's murder. It remains unclear what motivated Lynn Keel to commit the crime, but it's possible he was driven by his discovery that Diana planned to meet with a lawyer to initiate divorce proceedings and was also aware of a life insurance policy worth over $1 million. Lynn Keel received a prison sentence of 32 to 41 years. However, the investigation didn't end there. Authorities also looked into the death of Lynn Keel's first wife, Elizabeth, which was initially ruled an accident. But her family had always questioned the events that led to her death. Elizabeth Keel's body may be exhumed if new evidence arises. Dr. John Butts, a veteran medical examiner, only considers exhumation when there are unanswered questions. While some initially accidental deaths were later deemed murders, there's been no new information in Keel's case in 2 years, suggesting no reason to reopen the investigation. However, new details may emerge in the future.